Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giri Varadari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande. So reading from Our Family Business, The Great Art of Distributing Srila Prabhupada Books. As the BBT's financial situation improved, this is chapter 8. As the BBT's financial situation improved, Srila Prabhupada could allocate funds more freely. He was now able to fund novel outreach programs such as Bhaktivedanta Institute, BI, a Krishna-conscious think tank for research and development of strategies to reach people educated in the sciences. He also gave loans from the BBT to Tamal Krishna Goswami and Vishnu Jam Swami to pay for a fleet of full-size buses and smaller vans for the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. Srila Prabhupada considered the buses traveling temples. The BBT sponsored a library party which sold BBT books exclusively to university libraries and professors. The number of library party members grew and eventually went to all parts of the globe, taking orders from academics for all of Srila Prabhupada's books, those already in print and those yet to be printed. Srila Prabhupada also directed his BBT team to create and print hundreds of thousands of copies of a booklet entitled "The Krishna Conscious Movement is Authorized," a publicity piece that documented ISKCON's benevolent mission and noble values. Srila Prabhupada directed the BBT to give this booklet to ISKCON temples at no cost and to mail out 200,000 copies of it to a select list of important persons collected from Who is Who in America. Srila Prabhupada also sanctioned use of BBT funds to pay for attorneys to open new legal avenues for book distribution, and eventually he approved an in-house legal department to further expand markets for the BBT. He also funded and supported the Sanskrit department, which later expanded into the Sanskrit Bengali department. In addition to the surplus realized by the BBT from wholesaling books to ISKCON temples, the ISKCON temples also realized an income when they sold the books to the public. In this way, ISKCON temples, bookstores, and individuals made and still make a good income from selling BBT books. ISKCON temples in particular used their book and magazine income to purchase, maintain, and expand their local communities and their outreach projects. The Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 19, number 24. Na Yatra Vaikunta Kata Sudapaga. Na Yatra Vaikunta Kata Sudapaga. Na Sadavo Bhagavatas Tadashraya. Na Sadavo Bhagavatas Tadashraya. Na Yatra Yagyesha Maka Mahotsava. Na Yatra Yagyesha Maka Mahotsava. Suresha Loko Pi Na Vai Sa Sevyatam. Suresha Lokopi Na Vai Sa Sevyatam. Na Yatra Vaikunta Kata Sudapaga. Na Sadava Bhagavatas Tadashraya. Na Yatra Yagyesha Maka Mahotsava. Suresha Lokopi Na Vai Sa Sevyatam. Na Yatra Vaikunta Kata Sudapaga. Na Sadavo Bhagavatas Tadashraya. Na Yatra Yagyesha Maka Mahotsava. Suresha Lokopi Na Vai Sa Sevyatam. Na Yatra Vaikunta Kata Sudapaga. Na Sadhava Bhagavatas Tadashraya. Na Yatra Yagesha Mahamagotsava. Suresha Lokopi Navaisa Sevyatam Nayatra Vaikunta Kata Sudapaga Nayatra Yagesha Mahamahotsava Suresha Lokopi Navaisa Sevyatam. Vaishnavis. Nayatra Vaikunta Kata Sudapaga Nasadavo Bhagavatas Tadashaya Nayatra Yagyesha Makamahotsava Suresha Lakopi Navaisa Sevyatam. Na, not, Yatra, where, Vaikunta Kata Sudha Apaga, the nectarian rivers of discussions about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is called Vaikunta, or one who drives away all anxiety. Na, nor, Sadhava, devotees, Bhagavata, always engaged in the service of the Lord. Tat Ashraya, who are sheltered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Na, nor, Yatra, where, Yagya Isha Maka, the performance of devotional service to the Lord of sacrifices. Maha Utsava, which are actual festivals. Suresha Loka, a place inhabited by the denizens of heaven. Api, although. Na, not. Vai, certainly. Sa, that. Sevyatam, be frequented. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace C.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. An intelligent person does not take interest in a place, even in the topmost planetary system, if the pure Ganges of topics concerning the Supreme Lord's activities does not flow there. If there are not devotees engaged in service on the banks of such a river of piety, or if there are no festivals of Sankirtan Yagya to satisfy the Lord, especially since Sankirtan Yagya is recommended in this age. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the land of Bharatvarsha, specifically in Bengal, in the district of Nadia, where Navadvip is situated. It is therefore to be concluded, as stated by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, that within this universe, this earth is the best planet, and on this planet the land of Bharatvarsha is the best. In the land of Bharatvarsha, Bengal is still better. In Bengal, the district of Nadia is still better. And in Nadia, the best place is Navadvip, because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared there to inaugurate the performance of the sacrifice of chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. The Shastras recommend Krishna Varnam Tvisha Krishnam, Sangopangastra Parshadam, Yagyai Sankirtana Prayai, Yajanti Hi Sumeda Saha. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is always accompanied by his very confidential associates such as Sri Nityananda, Sri Gadadhar, and Sri Advaita, and by many devotees like Shivas. They are always engaged in chanting the name of the Lord and are always describing Lord Krishna. Therefore, this is the best among all the places in the universe. The Krishna consciousness movement has established its center in Mayapur, the birth site of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to give men the great opportunity to go there and perform a constant festival of Sankirtan Yagya as recommended herein, Yagyesha Maka Mahotsava, and to distribute prasad to millions of hungry people hankering for spiritual emancipation. This is the mission of the Krishna consciousness movement. Chaitanya Bhagavat confirms this as follows. One should not desire to be elevated even to a place in the heavenly planetary systems if it has no propaganda to expand the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, no trace of Vaishnavas, pure devotees of the Lord, and no festivals for spreading Krishna consciousness, it will be better to live perpetually cramped within the airtight bag of a mother's womb, where one can at least remember the lotus feet of the Lord, than to live in a place where there is no opportunity to remember his lotus feet. I pray not to be allowed to take birth in such a condemned place. Similarly, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the inaugurator of the Sankirtan movement, anyone who performs Sankirtan to please the Lord is very, very glorious. Such person has perfect intelligence, whereas others are in the ignorance of material existence. Of all the sacrifices mentioned in the Vedic literatures, the performance of Sankirtan Yagya is the best. Even the performance of 100 Ashwamedha sacrifices cannot compare to the sacrifice of Sankirtan. According to the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, if one compares Sankirtan Yagya to other yagyas, he is a Pashandi, an infidel, and is liable to be punished by Yamaraj. There are many Mayavadis who think that the performance of Sankirtan Yagya is a pious activity similar to the performance of the Ashwamedha Yagya and other such pious functions, but this is a Namaparad. Chanting of the holy name of Narayan and chanting of other names are never equal, despite what Mayavadis think. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhano Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuveva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. The mercy of spiritual master, a blind man can see the stars, lame man can cross the mountains, dumb man can speak eloquently. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto lotus feet of my spiritual master. So the translation again. An intelligent person does not take interest in a place, even in the topmost planetary system, if the pure Ganges of topics concerning the Supreme Lord's activities does not flow there, if there are not devotees engaged in service on the banks of such river of piety, or if there are no festivals of Sankirtan Yagya to satisfy the Lord, especially since Sankirtan Yagya is recommended in this age. So one of the important things that intelligent people consider is not just to live this one day. This one, just if I'm just fill my stomach today, and I am merry, and my senses are gratified, that is, all what I need in life. But if tomorrow everything falls apart, I'm not prepared for it, and etc. There is some financial crisis. There is all sorts of things that can happen in life. I'm just not ready for it. And that applies materially and also spiritually. If you are not really preparing for practicing your spiritual life in such a way that you are preparing for some difficulty, for some challenge to come, for some, you don't know what is actually even karmically. Of course, as devotees, when we take shelter and practice Krishna consciousness, we know that Krishna takes our karma in his hands. At the same time, we still get a certain amount of token reaction that Krishna delivers to us to help us to come closer to him. So we don't know, in one sense, what is coming from around the corner. In terms of our karmic reaction, we don't know what is just gonna that suddenly come in our life and put everything upside down. But intelligent person, it may not necessarily be able to completely expect what is gonna happen, although that may be also there, especially through the scriptures, you can understand a certain tendencies that may come, especially when cleansing the heart. There's a different things like lust, anger, greed, and etc. And those things may just come up until we become pure. They just kind of come up in a small ways, and sometimes they may come up as like a volcano. It's just like a volcanic eruption can come out due to some karmic thing, or purification. When we start stirring things deep in our heart in a pond, like a volcanic eruption of anger or greed or envy or lust may come out of our heart. So intelligent person is actually preparing for this, building a spiritual strength. When the weather is nice, when it is sunny, we not just go surfing on a wave. We know that we may fall off the wave, and probably we will sooner or later fall off the wave. So we're preparing for those difficult times when everything is going easy and everything is nice. We're building our spiritual strength. We're preparing for hard times. So this is a true intelligence, is to think long term. So therefore, as we read in this translation and purport, even if you are in the most wonderful, beautiful place in the world, I don't know what is considered like a heavenly place on this planet, because sometimes it's difficult to relate to the principles and ideas that there is heavenly planets where everything is fantastic. But in this world, there are a few heavenly places, and we know that Scotland is not one of them. At least not today. Of course, Prabhupada said, England is beautiful when the sun shines, and I think that can be expanded to Scotland. Then it is beautiful when the sun shines, or when we were passing with Dakshija Prabhu just recently in the north of Scotland. It's just phenomenal, the landscape and the mountains and etc. It is beautiful, but it was a sunny day when we could appreciate it fully. So you could say maybe that is to some extent when the sun shines, maybe Scotland is somewhat heavenly. Or when you see those beautiful pictures, of blue sea and the sun in the sky, and there's the palms and etc. And there's a hammock hanging between the palms. Maybe that is the heavenly place where mind sometimes can be gravitating and thinking, I would really love to be there. However, if there is no chanting of the holy names, if there is no Krishna Katha, glorification of the Lord, and if there are no devotees and engagement in devotional service, that is considered a hellish place. Is considered, of course, it's very extreme, but when pure devotee has so much appreciation for that situation when you remember the Lord, because these things invokes the remembrance of the Lord, which is the ultimate goal of life, to always remember Krishna and to never forget him. These Sankirtan festivals, this Krishna Katha, and this devotional service, these things, they help us to always remember Krishna. They help us to achieve what is considered the ultimate goal of life, remembering Krishna always and never forgetting him always. So pure devotee has got so much appreciation for that remembrance and experiences so much happiness in that remembrance, that even being in a womb upside down tightly, that cocoon of a womb, he considers a better situation to be than to be in that heavenly place where these things are not there. And therefore, because this living in that place helps us to achieve that goal, and it takes us to the most ultimate beautiful place is Goloka Vrindavan. If we live in that situation where these things are present, these three important things: Sankirtan Yagya, chanting the holy name; Krishna Katha is there, and there's always engagement in devotional service. This is non-different from spiritual world, and being in a spiritual world means that Krishna is there, that Krishna's devotees is there, and spiritual world Vrindavan is also there. So there is no better place to be uh, mentally, and in due course of time, even physically. This is our goal. Eventually, we get transferred when our mind and hearts become non-different from Vrindavan. When we leave our body, then there's practically we almost even not even notice what happened there. We just kind of appear in Vrindavan, appear in the spiritual world. So therefore, it is a highest aspiration of devotees to live in such a place, and therefore it is the greatest aspiration and effort for us is to create such a place to live, to create such a place where devotees and intelligent people want to live and become attracted. And of course, there is a holy place that is already there. There is some holy places where Krishna appears himself, are considered always holy places just by their presence, by their potency, because Krishna has appeared there. And is mentioned in the purport, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in Navadvip, and the Navadvip, they flood the Navadvip with something what is called a flood of mercy of Krishna Katha. They will always chanting, always dancing, always reciting Krishna's pastimes and qualities, and that flood is like was described as like opening a storehouse, or like opening a dam. Like if you have a dam, it holds a lot of massive amount of water, and if the dam breaks, and it's kind of floods the entire land in all directions with water. So by their chanting, by their spiritual ecstasy, they flood this Navadvip, and that overflow is now spreading all around the world in the form of as well of Sankirtan Yagya. It kind of created rivers, because in the mountains it kind of starts, the river starts, and then it goes down towards the sea, and then those rivers get nourished by some side rivers, and it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger until it becomes this massive, huge river, just like Ganges. Ganges is such a wide and massive water, but it only starts as this little kind of stream in Himalayas, but it gets fed by more and more rivers, and Yamuna enters it, and when it reaches its, what is it called when it reaches the sea? That delta. Thank you very much. When it reaches its delta, uh, then it's some huge, wide river. And what is interesting, so this is what Lord Chaitanya did. They broke open this dam, and this flood is spreading in all directions. And what is interesting about rivers is that rivers, they nourish the land. Uh, and uh, and since time immemorial, if you look at the big cities, including Glasgow, for example, is situated next to River Clyde, because it gives a many advantages to live next to the river, especially in this more ancient times, when the transportation was more limited. So rivers, they nourish the land. You can get the water from there. It's a way of transportation. It's also nourishes the land, and it's all becomes very green and nice. There is always trees and forests where there are rivers, because the rivers, they nourish them. And there is a lack of rivers. You see in some countries, there is not as much rain, and there is not as much like mountains, and the rivers, the amount of rivers are limited, so it becomes like a desert. It dries out. There is like a limited vegetation, and the whole place becomes not so suitable for inhabitation. So in the same way, if devotional places are also lacking of the rivers of Krishna Katha and Sankirtan Yagya, the festivals, you can consider Sankirtan Yagya is like a little small streams, or rivers as well, that also enhance the Krishna Katha. If that is lacking, then devotees may not feel so comfortable to live there, because the river starts drying out. If there is a lack of Krishna Katha, if there is a lack of Sankirtan, individually as a persons and also collectively, even if maybe we engaged in devotional service, then there will be some dryness, there will be some lack of inspiration individually and collectively. So there has to be not just a little stream of Krishna Katha, not just a little, thing of Sankirtan Yagya. It has to become like a big, massive river of Krishna Katha, that it washes. That's another thing with the water. It washes away so much dirt. If you're just dropping a few drops of water on your head, to take a shower, and may take a really long time, and you may just get fed up, just let me get out of the shower. And you can see sometimes it happens. Sometimes devotees, they practicing Krishna consciousness, but they're just dripping a few drops, on their head, so they're not getting so much washed away. The smell still remains from your sleeping bag, because it's still dirty. So if you're just dropping a few drops, the smell of anarthas are still present there, and it may choke up. It may be, choke up your devotional river, and may become. In the beginning, maybe we're just, pouring some river, but then it becomes a pond, and then the pond, if it doesn't get nourished by rain, it's quite a natural phenomena. Massive, huge ponds, if there is no watery nourishment, it becomes smaller and smaller. The things start to grow around the pond. There's a big trees. They start sucking out all the water. Then there is this lots of mold accumulates in the pond's bottom, and the whole thing is just drying out and drying out and drying out. And then some devotees leave Krishna consciousness because that purification is not sufficient. We have to have enough river there flowing of Krishna Katha and Sankirtan Yagya, so you can feel the effect of washing, that our hearts and our minds and our consciousness become washed. And this is the wonderful thing, and this is what actually, since time immemorial, a number of different devotees has did, is to establish like a replica of Vrindavan. Vrindavan is consciousness, is a collective consciousness of the people who live in a certain place. So while holy dhams like Mayapur, Vrindavan, where Krishna appeared, Ayodhya, your Lord Ram appeared, they are naturally full of transcendental potencies. but also there is a Vrindavan that becomes manifested from the heart of the that has become purified, and Lord Krishna has taken his place and residence in that heart. Then that when there's more people who are in that consciousness and who are so purified and attracted to Krishna, that manifests Vrindavan externally in a form of atmosphere that becomes very purifying and attractive and uplifting. So therefore, in order to achieve that, to create a Vrindavan in our hearts and to create Vrindavan externally, we need that river of Krishna Katha, and the festivals of Sankirtan Yagya has to be there. And then, of course, through that inspiration and purification, if you engage in devotional service, that completes the entire, makes the whole situation so perfect that there is nowhere else to go. That becomes the spiritual world. There is no better place to be where these activities are performed. It becomes the perfection of life, and the most intelligent people will live there, even if it's rainy, even if it is raining, every day. Like in Scotland, we have quite a bit of rain. There's not as much sun as it could be, and it's for next few months, and maybe a little bit like this. However, if there is these other three things that we just mentioned, if we become absorbed in those, then that's the best type of life. There's no better life to live, even if your skin is getting touched by this a little bit of water in the form of rain or a snow or cold. It doesn't matter. And therefore, it is so important to understand that this Sankirtan Yagya is described that this is the best place in the whole universe where the chanting of the holy name is done. And raise your hand if you would like your life to become easier. Raise your hand. How many people would like to have their life easier? So if you truly would like your life to become easier, then make Sankirtan Yagya, chanting, and Krishna Katha your top priority of absorption of your consciousness. Because the things to achieve a spiritual world, that is an effort of many, many births, and is mentioned the yagyas, various types of yagyas and sacrifices. To achieve Goloka Vrindavan, that would normally take many, many births, and even that it wasn't accessible for a long time. That wasn't accessible. Mainly, the destination was Vaikuntha, where Lord Narayan is predominating deity. But Lord Chaitanya opened for us Goloka Vrindavan, the Braj Bhakti in these 5 different rasas of pure devotion. That is very, very rare. It happens, once in a day of Lord Brahma, when this becomes opened for an access for a conditioned soul. So we have an opportunity in this very one lifetime to go back to Goloka Vrindavan. And we should understand this is achieved not just by service. It has to be both things. It has to be service and sharing, but also hearing, or fundamentally by hearing, and that will nourish our devotional service. If there is a lack of Krishna Katha and Sankirtan Yagi in our lives, then at the very best it becomes karma yoga. That means we do the activity, and the activity gets offered to Krishna after it has been performed. But pure devotional service means you are in a consciousness that you're doing activity for Krishna. You're doing activity to please the Lord, in an attitude to please the Lord. So therefore, our life has to be surcharged with Krishna Katha. And as our hearts becomes purified, that will manifest in this very powerful, wonderful atmosphere that becomes a Vrindavan atmosphere. And that is one of the goals of Sankirtan movement. 7 purposes of Sankirtan movement is to and actually there's a few goals related to that. One of them is to propagate the Sankirtan movement as taught by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, one of the 7 goals. Another goal is to propagate the consciousness of Krishna as taught in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So this is Krishna Katha. And another goal is to build a place of pilgrimage for Krishna's pastimes. But pilgrimage has no meaning unless there is a purity there. Otherwise, these people come, take photos, and gone. There's nothing happens. There is no transformation of the heart. So this out of 7 purposes, 3 are directly connected with this. And as the purification comes as well, that establishes the values of life as well, that bring the real peace and unity to the world. So we should make, if you want our life to be easier, we should really not neglect our chanting, because that is like a shortcut. We all looking in Kali Yuga something very quick and effective, and just surpass, some shortcuts. We want to kind of make our life as easy and as possible. So this is the way to go. Make your japa number 1 priority. In kirtan, not only dance but also listen to the holy name as well, because we may become a fantastic dancers and fantastic singers, but the essence above all is the chanting of the holy name. And of course, dancing is also transcendental activity, and singing is a transcendental activity, but the foremost in all that effort is the chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So are there any questions or comments on these points? Yes, Paul.
I'm just doing this little booklet right now by Mahatma. It's called 32 Different Ways to Not Chant Japa. So it goes through all there's bubblegum japa, there's left-hand japa, you do something else at the same time. There's reading japa, where you're reading at the same time. And there's no japa, where you're actually mopping the floor or something. You've got your big band on. And then there's driving japa, methadone japa, where you're so tanned out, so desensitized to anything else around you. So it's just amazing how it seems like it's going to be a simple thing, and then when you actually start trying to chant this out, so many different ways. I'm going to have this retreat, taught me about japa. One of the subjects is going to be the offences to the holy name. So I wondered if you'd say something about that, because I heard that inattentive chanting is the cause of all offences to the holy name, and attentive chanting, even if you go to chant in your relation the day before you've made all 10 offences, if you can just chant attentively, which can be very difficult, but if you can, then immediately you become free from all the 10 offences. So the challenge is, do you have the determination and the faith to chant attentively, despite all the different mitigating factors which you've accrued due to making the offences in the first place?
Thank you. One of the most potent things to revive your japa, or if you're a new devotee, to actually realize this is the most important activity from the very first day. We want to hear about the holy name, and that is one of the purposes of this holy name retreat that we are doing this weekend, is actually to revive our understanding. The more we speak about something, we understand what is the way to do it and what is the way not to do it, and we understand the importance of it. So it's called hearing about hearing. You can always, especially if you don't have a taste for something, you can only be attentive if you are very intellectually convinced about its value. Otherwise, you just allow your mind to wander away. So therefore, we have constantly be reminded, and also we need to experience as well, at least, allow yourself just to put everything aside, and just try your really best. And especially this weekend is an opportunity, truly and fully absorb yourself in hearing and chanting. Allow yourself to reach some higher platform, at least for the weekend of purification, that your faith increases in this chanting. And then when you sit down, you will be a lot more determined to actually hear And there is no greater investment in your whole Krishna consciousness. If you look, what I can do to make my Krishna consciousness better, what I can do to experience more of Krishna in my life and more connection and purification and inspiration. There is no greater investment than investing in your improving your japa. And of course, there is all the 10 offenses are there that we need to avoid. And most important one is sadhu ninda, actually, to avoid, because that is one of the main things that compromises our ability to hear. And is described as, it's called like a purity. Purity in your eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, that also enhances your ability to hear. So if you're regulated in your sleeping, in your eating, you're controlling your sex urges, and defending, you're humble. You're not in this always fighting spirit. Who said who, and why are you saying this to me, and how dare you, and who are you to tell me, all that kind of defending program. And we just cultivate humility. Then, and of course, I'm preaching to myself. I'm far away from this. So if that increases our capacity to hear, and ability to hear the holy name. So if we are able just intellectually hear every day something about the holy name, I've tried to read a little bit of one page. There's now a number of books about the holy name. Try to read every single day one page about the holy name and try to absorb it and apply it. That really enhances, empowers japa. Yes, please.
On the same subject, it's impossible to overcome the offense of inattentive chanting. And he says, but if Krishna decides to help, then it's possible. So, this coming weekend we may make a very concerted effort, and it may not happen where we'd like it to, like so many japa periods. It doesn't quite happen the way you were. We're very, very hopeful, and we're very optimistic and anticipating, and it doesn't happen again. And so it's interesting, Shiva Rama was just saying in the Sankalpa Kamudi book that in order for real humility, for Danya to manifest, the devotee has to reach a point of becoming almost like hopeless, and realizing he can't do this. And then that's the precursor for Krishna deciding to show his mercy. The devotee is like brought to his knees because he's just so frustrated. He knows what he should do, and he's trying to get him to do it. Instead, he fails to do it, to just give the name and observe the name Krishna. So don't become discouraged if you are feeling like that. If you feel that I'm hopeless, my japa is terrible, this teaching improve. This is the beginning stages of humility coming in, and then Krishna, because Krishna can't give you something if it's going to make you proud. If you start hearing holy name and going into Rasamila and all the pastimes, then maybe you become proud and offensive. So that humility has to be there first. And then when it is, it's like having a vessel. And when you have that, then you can take the lesson.
That's really good point. Technically speaking, efforts, we're trying to attract the mercy of the Lord, and that is what Damodar Lila is all about. Yashoda Mataji, she couldn't bind Krishna, but she was very determined. And actually, interesting thing, the very moment when Krishna allows her to bind him is the moment when she completely becomes hopeless to be able to do it. That's the very, very moment. Actually, at that moment, she reached the point after endeavoring so much, there was no more ropes available. And this very, very moment, she was thinking, actually, I won't be able to do this. And then Krishna bestowed the mercy, and then suddenly she was able to bind him, not with all those ropes, but with the original rope that she had into her hair. So with our efforts, we are attracting Krishna's mercy. but we have to try. We have to really, really try. And then if you feel hopeless, by trying, that is the platform to go. It's not that you're feeling hopeless that you haven't even tried. But that's also, of course, can be helpful to call for Krishna's help. I haven't even tried. Please give me strength to even give a shot. But you want to make a best effort, but you understand that you require Krishna's mercy at the same time, and that's what's Krishna gonna bridge all the gap that you are not able to cross due to many disqualifications that we have in Kali Yuga. Are there any other questions or comments? Go ahead.
Could you talk about the distinction between hopelessness and low self-esteem?
So low self-esteem and hopelessness. So is how you react to those feelings is what differentiates. So when you're feeling, I'm lacking in my Krishna consciousness, I have so many anarthas and etc. If you give up, if you don't, stop making an effort and etc., then it could be indication of low self-esteem. But if those feelings energizes you, I still want, even if disqualified and have so many problems and etc. Rupa Goswami, he prays like that. I have no devotion, I have no qualification. Srila Prabhupada, when he enters United States, he says, I have no qualification, I have no knowledge, but I'm hoping against hope. I'm hoping against hope. So that disqualification, it energizes the spiritual life. You calling for Krishna's help instead of giving up of calling for Krishna. Actually, that those feeling forces you and pushes you. Please, Krishna, help me. You're becoming intense. Your devotional service becomes intensified, and chanting is become intensified. I'm so low and so fallen, but please, Krishna, help me. So then that's is kind of positive sense of hopelessness. But if you Prabhu.
Yeah, no, Manav would explain also that Srila Prabhupada was talking about disciples. He was saying also about ourselves that we should still love ourselves. It's like if you love Krishna, then you love everyone. So you also love yourself, as you talk about especially. So kind of low self-esteem writes you off. You don't have any love for yourself, and it's important to have that, because if you don't love yourself, then you won't be able to have any love for anybody else. So that's how we can counteract something which wouldn't be favorable. It would be unfavorable actually for devotional service. If I love myself, then that would be unfavorable for devotional service. But loving yourself means you see your potential, you see that you're part and parcel of Krishna, and that it's completely possible for you to become a pure devotee and to achieve success in devotional service. It's inherently your nature to be like that anyway. So it's an illusion to not have love for yourself. And then you show love for yourself by, they say, I wouldn't, if I really love myself, and I wouldn't let myself do that. So if you feel yourself succumbing to some weakness, then you think, I really love myself, and I wouldn't let myself do this. So it helps you to be kind of proactively positive about your Krishna consciousness.
Yeah, understanding actually one of the most powerful things that I not experience, but connected with when I was reading Bhagavatam Rita, just to see how much love Krishna has for his devotees is phenomenal, is unbelievable. So that helps one of the most powerful things to gain that self-esteem is to see that if I develop love for Krishna, or even any efforts actually to please him, it's bringing me closer to this goal. And Krishna, of course, loves us unconditionally. He's not like waiting, okay, you do some service, then I will love you. His love is already unconditional, but he's giving us a process by which we can, eventually become fully purified and become established in that transcendental position. But his love is already there, it's fully unconditional. So there is no reason to have a low self-esteem. Is actually bodily consciousness in one sense, because we identify with the body and with the anarthas. When we see we are not this body, we are not this mind, that means we are also not those anarthas. The soul is amazing. This says in chapter 2. Krishna says the soul is amazing. So in a pure state, it is amazing, but love self-esteem means we have identified now with our anarthas that this is me. It's not us. It's just something that is going to get washed away.
It's also like the grungy, low self-esteem. I don't have to try. I don't have to value. I don't have to get up to do this or follow this because I'm useless anyway. So the payoff of having low self-esteem is you don't have to make them check. You don't have to be held accountable. So that's what you get for having low self-esteem. That's how mind says, well, just think you're useless, so you don't have to do too much. Nobody's going to expect too much of you. So you think, oh, that sounds good, okay, I'll go for that. But that's not very good. Better to have high self-esteem and think, I can do this, it's possible, I just have to try, and Krishna will help, And then we can tackle anything, we can try for anything. Ultimately, of course, the result is Krishna. But high self-esteem means you really love yourself and you really feel that it's possible to do anything with the mercy of Krishna and the spiritual understanding.
There's two ways how low self-esteem manifest. One is that you're just kind of always beating yourself for everything and you're so negative. Another one is that you are, trying to prove to everyone that how great you are. So in a sense, it manifests that you have a low self-esteem, so you have to keep yourself okay. You just have to keep convincing everybody else around you, including yourself, that you are fine. So that manifests again into, some excessive ways of how you show that you are fine. But that is also indication of low self-esteem. Yes, Prabhu.
The question, online question that Hare Krishna. What if the state of one's heart isn't one of love while chanting?
Why chanting?
While chanting, at the time of chanting, what if the state of one's heart isn't one of love?
So this is the very reason to chant. If you realize I have no love, I have no love for Krishna, or my heart is whatever the situation may be, this is the medicine. So it is good, when we spoke about various things in the class, is the recognition of a certain sickness that we may have, or disqualifications and etc. Understanding our position, it encourages to take the medicine. And then you become very enthusiastic and keen. I don't want to remain in this state that I feel no love in the heart, and my heart is still framed, etc. Then I want this heart to soften and melt, and this is done through this very attentive, purposeful, conscious effort, to try our best, to sweat in our japa. So thank you. That's a very good question. Okay, I'll stop here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki